Hey, this is Reverend Darrell Gibbs with Country Gospel Bluegrass Show here on Channel 18 Valley. I'm with Cody McCarver today, and he's a good friend of mine, been friends for a few years, and we're trying to get some things together here for Nickel Row. And you know, if you've been listening to my radio show on Sunday mornings on WUAT, we'd like to invite you to that on Sunday mornings from 8 o'clock to about 10:30 every Sunday morning. Cody, how did you get interested in music and start doing these kind of things?
Well, my mama forced me into it, like literally forced me into it. It was our church that I grew up in, our piano player that we had, who was just a fabulous piano player, he moved away. And my mom said, "You're going to be our church pianist," and I was 9. And kind of God just said, you know, you can play. Aww. And I could play anything I wanted to play and didn't know what I was playing, other than, you know, I kind of knew a few chords and played by ear, and didn't really want anybody to know throughout school that I played the piano, because that wasn't cool, you know.
Right.
And so until I found out about 19 or 20 years old that I could actually go somewhere and play music. By that time I had taught myself how to play bass and guitar and harmonica and drums a little bit, and I taught myself to play a lot of stuff. But by the time I was 19, 20 years old, after I went to college for a little bit, I was making a living.
So you found out you could make some dough doing it then?
Yeah,
huh?
And then I quit going to church to play and started going to honky tonks. So that was...
Was the money better there in them honky tonks, I guess?
Oh yeah, the money was a lot better. I never got paid a nickel to play in church. The Nickel Row, I never got paid a nickel to play in church. But I went into the clubs and started playing music, and then of course the next thing I knew, I was the band that we had. We're doing bigger shows and starting to spread out a little bit. And then there was a lady named Lynn Anderson. Some people may remember Lynn, who had the biggest hit she had was "I Beg Your Pardon, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden." She actually came to Dunlap to a club on the south end of town, and it was just a place, you know, where if you didn't have a gun when you went in, they give you one. And she came to hear us play, and the next thing I know, we were rehearsing at her house. And our first show was at the Dallas Fan Jam. I'll never forget it, Dallas, Texas. And we went from the Dallas Fan Jam to Europe.
Wow. How many instruments do you play, Cody?
I don't play any of them great. You know, like Zach Ollendorf, who's from here in Papa, you know, he's just a great guitar player. Right. I play a lot of different things, and I'm able to fake it well enough to
How many songs would you think you wrote through the years?
Oh, Lord. I wished I had them all. Thousands.
Thousands, really?
Yeah, thousands.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, some of them, you write them and you throw them in the garbage. That's not very good. And some of them, you write them and you never sing them. And I was going back through some of my books the other day of lyrics that I'd written, and I was just like, wow. You know, I just wrote down ideas and wrote a half song and finished them. And then every now and then you write one that comes across and it's like, this is really good, you know, so we're going to record it, or we hope Garth Brooks records it or something.
Right. You've really wrote a lot of good songs. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, even way before I met you. And I'm a fan of all kinds of music. But when do you think that you really got your big break? I mean, you know?
I'm still waiting.
I think you're awesome. You've been all over the world, Europe, and played every church and.
You know, I guess the first big break that I got to play for a living was working for Lynn Anderson. And you know, we were doing 100 shows a year or something like that at that time. And then in 1993, around that area, I think it was, I signed my first record deal with Giant Records. And we recorded an album, and we had a duet with Johnny Paycheck on it.
Wow.
And John had just got out of prison, and he and I were friends, and we recorded a duet with him. And I went out and done some shows with John. Started opening a few shows with him, working with him a little bit, and singing with him on stage every night, and it was a neat experience. And then, of course, we just jumped in with both feet and started going out and playing the road and working all we could. And that album never got released due to politics at Warner Brothers and the change of label head.
There's a lot of that in Nashville,
Yeah,
in there.
when the president of the label came in, he wanted to sign his own artists and do his own things, and it was a new guy. And so they said, we might not be able to put your record out for a couple years. And
Right.
I kind of said, well, I'll just go find something else to do. And we went on the road and just worked hard for a long time. And then in 1998, Danny Shirley called me and asked me to be part of Confederate Railroad. And that was another 100 shows a year.
Right.
And all the band guys that I had in the band with me working at that time, all of them were hired by Mark Wheels. And a lot of people know Mark Wheels from North Georgia, had some big hits at the time. You know, Don't Laugh at Me was a huge record in country radio. So he hired all of them. And all those guys, like my bass player at the time, he now plays with Toby Keith.
Well,
My guitar player plays with Travis Tritt. So all those guys were great musicians, and they all went and done great things. And of course, I was in Railroad up until 2010. In 2010, I left and signed another recording contract of my own, and put out a country record. And we had top 40 singles of country and #1 videos on CMT, and all those things were a blessing and a curse at the same
Right.
time. But then now I've been since 2013. After my dad passed away in this prison out here, I have been writing gospel songs.
right. That was my next question, asking you, how did you transition from country music to, to the gospel thing?
You know, it was just a leap of faith. It really was. It was a leap of faith. I tell people all the time that we were out doing country shows, and I was doing really well. You know, financially, we were doing pretty good. Got my own bus, my own band. Things are going good. And I just was really struggling with my personal life
Right.
and my spiritual life, which I had none. You know, I had no spiritual life. I grew up in church, but I was one of those people who didn't. I tell people all the time, I was one of those people who didn't like church people.
Right, yeah.
And
I think all of us can relate to that a little bit.
Yeah, but now I'm a church people.
Now, I'm a church people. That's me
And-
too. Amen.
And I said many times, you know, somebody would say, "Why don't you come to church?" Or, you know, my aunt, her husband is a pastor, and come to church and sing and play. I'm like, man, if I go to your church, the roof would fall in.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to go to church. And finally, when it come back around to where I was just a wreck, I went back to that little church and still attend there when I'm not, you know, playing somewhere. And I just started writing gospel songs, and I just kind of said, God, you give me my talent when I was 9 years old, and I'm going to try to use this for you if you'll let me. And I was worried about my finances and how, you know, as we all do.
Right.
And but somehow or another, he's took care of me.
How do them say thousands of songs you wrote? What's your very favorite? What's your most favorite song?
Christian song, probably The Lord's Will. If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. You don't write the script, you're in his hands. And if the sun comes up in the morning, it'll be by his grace. So when I bow my head tonight, here's what I'll pray. If it's the Lord's will, it'll rain tomorrow. If it's the Lord's will, the sun's gonna shine. If it's the Lord's will, I'm gonna follow. If it's the Lord's will, oh, it'll be fine. My daddy died in prison, but I believe that God answered my prayers, setting my daddy free. And even though he may not have answered the way I hoped he would, I can still say thank you, Lord. It's plant a garden in the spring, and he'd say, Lord willing, son, we'll get by. But if it ain't the Lord's will, it ain't right. If it's the Lord's will, it'll rain tomorrow. If it's the Lord's will, oh, the sun's gonna shine. If it's the Lord's will, I'm gonna follow. If it's the Lord's will, oh, it'll be fine. If it's the Lord's will, oh, it'll be fine.
Lord's will. How'd you come upon that song?
My dad was in prison for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go visit him, you know, when I could. And I was going back to church, kind of trying to figure it out, kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
And I went and seen my dad one Sunday. And when I would leave the prison, I could see him wave. He could come out in the backyard and stand underneath the razor wire and the chain link fence, and he could wave at me.
Well,
And I'd wave at him as I drove away, you know. And I remember, you know, just kind of saying a prayer under my breath. I said, Lord, if it's any way possible, you could see fit to show me how to get him out of prison.
mm-hmm.
Dig a tunnel. I don't know what we got to do, but you know, show me what to do. I'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of said, here it is. And show me what to do. And he, 3 weeks later, he died.
Mm.
And I was really, you know, kind of devastated about that.
Amen. That's right. I bet.
My dad and I had a really rocky relationship growing up. Well, we didn't get along at all. And but in the last 15 years that he went to prison, we got along great.
Mm.
And so we had, you know, I said, Lord, if you can show me how to get him out of prison, I appreciate it. And then he died. You know, I was kind of mad about that. I was like, God, you know, what'd you do this to me for?
Right. Got a little bit of mad
And
at God.
I'm trying to do better.
Mm.
And long story short, you know, I just kind of heard God one morning say, I got him out of prison for you.
Yeah.
And I went to the chaplain, and I sat down with him and found out that my dad had given his life to the Lord in prison. There's more church in prison than there is out here.
There is. When you're in trouble, that's where you
And you know,
need to
the
look.
funny thing is I tell people all the time, they take the Bibles out of schools, but as soon as you get to prison, they give you one.
Yeah.
And my dad had lots of church in there. Of course, he took me to church my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And my mom taught Sunday school. So when I realized that I got my dad's things out of his cell, and I read that the notes and things that he'd been studying in church,
Right.
and some of the things that he was reading, and then I come to the conclusion, you know, the Bible verse of Luke 22 and 42, where, you know, Christ is in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's praying, and he says, you know, Father, I know I'm about to go through all these things, but, you know, if you could see fit for it not to happen to me, I'd appreciate it.
Right.
And he says, but not my will, but your will be done. So I always said, you know, I felt like God answered a prayer for me when my dad died.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he didn't answer it the way I wanted him to.
Mm-hmm.
But his will's got to be done. There ain't nothing I can do about it.
Right.
So that's why I wrote the Lord's will.
How did you come up with the riff? The actual, if it's God's will.
If it's the Lord's will.
Yeah, if the Lord's will, I mean.
My grandpa.
Your grandpa?
Yeah, my grandpa, you know, we don't hear it as much as we used to. My grandpa was 80-something years old. And my grandpa used to always, he'd say, Lord willing, we're going to get a garden out this year, you know.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Lord willing.
I love that, yeah.
And you hear that from a lot of older people. You know, you don't hear it so much no more.
Right.
And him would always say, man, if it's the Lord's will, son, we're going to get a garden out, or if it's the Lord's will. And I just remembered him saying that, and that's kind of where that came from.
Oh, that's really good. I really enjoy that whole CD. It's
That's probably the best one I've done.
Really?
Yeah.
I really like Rise Up too. That's
the new one. Rise Up.
How can people reach out to you and get some of your music and and receive some of your CDs or say download some of your music?
If you have an iPhone, you have iTunes, iPad, any of that world, everything I've ever written or recorded with myself or being a part of Confederate Railroad, all that stuff is on iTunes.
Right.
If you have an Android phone and you don't have iTunes, you use Play Store, Google
Right.
Play Store. It's on there. You can go on there and buy any of the music that we put out on there. And then the Lifeway Christian bookstores, a lot of those have closed.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still, one in Chattanooga that's open, but they carry, Cody McCarver music there. And then, of course, the movies and things we've been doing, the Westerns that I've been involved in
Which are amazing, by the way.
a new one just came out in Walmart in December.
Oh, man. It is.
Called The Last Gunslinger, and I'm the only guy that was ever in a movie that didn't know how to ride a horse.
Say,
In a Western.
well, I've seen you ride horses going
Well,
on.
I can ride one now, but when I first got a part in a movie, I didn't know how to ride a horse.
But it's a really good movie. I'd say that anybody that loves country western movies or that style of cowboy movies, I should say, man, they need to rent it or get it or buy it or whatever they can as quick as they can because it's really good.
They don't make enough of them.
They don't, not no more. That's the reason I was so tickled to get it and watch it.
Yeah, we got the new one out called The Last Gunslinger, and then there was one that I have a part in called The Last Days of Billy the Kid that I hear just came out. So I don't have any say-so about any of that. It all comes out of California. And but Walmart's carrying the Westerns that I've been in, which is.
Are you still under your own record label now, or are you in a signed record label?
We're in the process of developing a record company. One of the things that I found out about the music that I'm writing and recording in the Christian genre, there's not a lot of it.
Right.
And they call it outlaw gospel.
There we go.
And that's only
I'm proud of this shirt, by the way.
That's only because of the sound.
Right.
It's not anything to do with the message. I tell people all the time, if you go back and you look at all the people throughout the Bible that God used, none of them perfect.
Amen. They still aren't. I know a lot of preachers. And
He can use anybody,
anytime,
for anything.
Amen.
And we've all got a testimony. We're all going to be used by God if we just let Him.
That's right.
And then the sound of the music, everybody was coming from my background. I was touring with David Allen Coe and stuff like that. It sounds, kind of what we call outlaw country.
Right, yeah.
So this guy in Nashville kind of pegged us as being, what I'm writing and recording as being outlaw gospel. So I think that anybody that's, like Sean Cooley, for example, who did that version of Rise Up on my album, which is hip hop.
Right. Which was amazing. I don't really like that kind of music, but it was really good.
Yeah, but man, Sean's
really
super
good.
talented, and he's wanting to do something positive in the world. He needs a
really
home,
amazing.
And I feel like that no matter what the sound of the music is, you need a way to distribute it and get it to people.
That's right.
And market it. So we're in the process with my buddy Luke Card developing a record company called 814 Records with distribution probably through Sony.
Mm-hmm.
And bring in more artists and singers who who have something to say, but maybe they don't fit into the contemporary Christian format, or they don't fit into the Southern gospel format. Mm-hmm. They just don't fit. But they got some sort of a praise in their life, some sort of an anointing that they want to give messages, through their music.
That's right.
And so I hope to see more and more people doing it.
So you think you'll be signing other artists at the Outlaw Gospel label?
I hope so.
Yeah.
We named it 814 Records.
814.
Yeah, and in part because my dad, what he did to send him to prison, he did it on August the 14th. And August the 4th, which changed my life forever.
Right.
And August the 14th is my birthday, in case anybody wants to send me a gift.
Yeah.
And Romans 8:14.
Right.
So I am. We've took those three things and developed the name 814 Records. And we have 814 Records Facebook page. If anybody's interested in getting involved in what we're doing, shoot us a message.
Need to hear that.
814 Records. And of course, my Facebook page is just Cody McCarver Music. And as we roll into 2018, I hope there's more artists, there's more things going to happen through that record company. 2, 3, 4. heard them on TV putting you down. They talk about faith in God, but they leave you out. Politicians talk about change, when all we really need is a revolution. In your name we got to rise up. We got to rise up. Somebody say Jesus. Somebody say amen. We got to rise up. I seen a preacher on the street preaching your word. People laughing and hating on him, but they hated you first. And we need revival. Oh, we need to move. And we need all your children to stand up for you. We got to rise up. We got to rise up. Somebody say Jesus. Somebody say amen. We got to rise up. We got to rise up and come together like a mighty rushing wind, and come together again and again. We got to rise up. Somebody say Jesus. Somebody say amen. We got to rise up. We got to rise up. We got to rise up. Oh, we got to rise up.
Can you tell me a little bit about having too much Jesus in your music and what happened in Nashville about that time?
If we got time.
We do?
Part of the reason the word outlaw came up was, while I was singing outlaw country. Mm-hmm. And I went to Nashville, and this guy listened to my music, and he said the new songs that I was writing and recording, and I did a version of Leaning on Everlasting Arms, which was a little different for, the way it was probably was meant to be. And he said, man, you kind of sound outlaw-y, I'm like, what? This is Christian music. It's not outlaw-y. What are you talking about? And I was blown away when, we went to another place, and a guy said to me that, you're writing really great songs, Cody. I mean, these are really good. And, we would maybe like to pitch them to some bigger artists and, in the contemporary Christian field. But you say Jesus a lot.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean I say Jesus a lot? And now these are people who put songs on the radio.
Right.
These are people that are writing and pitching songs to major Christian artists that are on the radio, out touring in the name of God.
Right.
And I said, what do you mean I say Jesus too much in my songs? And he said, well, if you just said God, it would be the same thing. I said, no, it wouldn't. It's not the same.
That's right. There's many
And
gods.
and I told him that. I said, there's lots of gods, but there ain't but one Jesus. And the Bible says, you know, to get to the Father, you got to go through the Son.
That's right. Amen.
And he said, well, man, you know, the thing about it is it's easier to get it on the radio if you just say God and don't say Jesus so much. So after that meeting, I drove the next day. You know, I had about a 2.5 hour drive. And I listened to a contemporary Christian radio station on Sirius. And for 2.5 hours, I heard the name Jesus twice.
Wow.
I paid attention just to see if this guy was telling me the truth, you know. And so I hate to bring up Waylon, who's my favorite singer in the whole world, was Waylon
Which is a
Jennings.
nice man. I met him once.
And Waylon, you know, what would Waylon have done if that had happened to him? I kept thinking, what would Waylon have done? He'd go
been a
back
rebel.
home and write some more songs about Jesus.
Amen. That's right.
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And we just keep doing what we're doing, and people seem to be liking it, and the testimonies, you know, seems to be reaching the right people, and it's still country, and it's still Christian, and it's still all those things that I think it's supposed to be.
Right. Well, I really enjoy it, and I know many of our viewers enjoy you, and really thank you so much for all the things that you do. And I've seen you do so many tours. How many tours do you think you've done this last year? I mean, just different.
Just dates.
Just dates, right?
Yeah. We're probably somewhere around 75, 80.
75 or 80?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, the most I really would want to do right now maybe would be 100.
Right, in a year.
Yeah.
That's really a plate full right there.
It is. You got to figure, you know, 50, 52 weeks in a year.
And traveling and
Couple of 3 shows a month, and then you slow down at Christmas.
where would you stay most? I mean, do you stay like in the southeast, or have you? I know you've been all around the world actually, but
Yeah,
just in the last year.
We'll be going and doing some things. Like my first show that I can think of, we go down through Alabama, then end up at a big revival in Naples, Florida, called Rise Up.
Wow, that's awesome! Yeah.
And they're calling a revival Rise Up, and you know, I've been everywhere from a small church to a festival with, you know, 10,000 people.
Right.
And it's just in the last 2 or 3 years I've been doing most of the Christian shows, and so we'll probably do that many.
I guess the first time I ever met you was over at Ronnie Pearson's church at Graceway Chapel in Cleveland.
Yep.
And that's a very small church, probably maybe 50 or sometimes
I think it's
75.
about 175, 100 people.
Yeah, and I think that night it was crowded out about 150. It was so many people there to come see you.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there.
It's a small church. It's actually a smaller venue than what this venue is here where we're sitting. We've got to actually want to talk to you today about February 23rd at 7 o'clock here at Nickel Row. Cody McCarver is going to be here, and he's going to be doing a show. And I would like to invite you to come. You'll be able to find out more information about it on Channel 18 Valley Facebook, and I'm sure you'll be putting it on your Facebook and all your information about how much it's going to be and what we're going to do. And
yeah, I actually came here to this venue and heard Carrie,
which is awesome. She's
got up and
really
sang
good.
a song with her Christmas
Carrie
shows
Hassler.
that she did, and this has sounded great. And the room was packed full of people, and I was like just blown away by how good it sounded. Of course,
Yeah.
Carrie always sounds good. I wish I could sing as good as her.
But I heard that you were fixing to be going to the studio and doing a duet with someone, and you're going to be, I'm afraid you're probably being outclassed because he sings much better than you do. And I'm talking about your little buddy that lives with you there at your house.
Clyde.
Yeah. Tell us about Clyde.
Yeah, Clyde's.
I love Clyde.
Yeah,
he ought to have his own Facebook page.
You know what? I started putting his pictures of him up on Facebook, and he gets more attention than I ever did with any song I ever wrote.
Right.
But he's a stray.
A stray, really.
Clyde, for all the people who don't know, Clyde is a dog. Clyde McCarver. That's his name.
Clyde.
And he came to the house, and it was cold and rainy, and he had been ran over.
Oh.
And I hate to say this, but I ran him off because I don't want no dog. And I don't have time for a dog.
When you live in the country, you get a lot of them, seems like.
He was just a stray, and he kept coming back, anyway, I was kind of coaxed into feeding him, and we fed the dog, and man, he ain't left since. And I took him to a groomer, and we took 29 ticks off of him.
Oh my!
His teeth had been knocked out, and he was just pitiful looking. And now I would not take him.
And he lives like a king, don't he? He lives like a king now.
Yeah,
I love Clyde.
He lives and eats better than I do.
And everybody does. Everybody's always talking about on Facebook about when you post pictures of Clyde. Everybody just loves Clyde. That's amazing. Well, thank you for watching today, and don't forget to like us and share, and don't forget about our February 23rd date. Starts at 7 o'clock here at Nickel Row in downtown Pikeville, Tennessee. We're going to have Cody McCarver here. Let's fill the house up and show him how much we love him and how much we watch our cable station. It's a very special thing to have a local TV station that loves the community as much as this Channel 18 Valley does. So y'all keep on watching, and we'll have more with Cody McCarver.